What's up, everybody? There's your Cassel. There's your Perry. Phil had a great get this week. Second time around with Kurt Warner from the NFL Network, Hall of Fame quarterback. Does a lot of analysis and has watched a lot of Mac Jones this year. Phil circled back to see what his appraisal of Mac was. Here's what Kurt Warner had to say about what he thinks might be plaguing the young quarterback.
You know, I'm not sure I would say regression. I just think there's times that he plays too fast. And, you know, it's to my point that sometimes he gets to the check down too quickly. Instead of letting a play out, seeing what the defense is going to do and get to his check down when he should get to his check down, he's making some of those decisions kind of real quickly. But most of the time when you get into the playoffs, your quarterback has to be willing to take chances and attack down the field. And I don't think Mac does that enough. I think he's too quick to get it to his check down, and he gets positive plays. But, you know, it doesn't matter how good you are in this league. It is tough to make 10 and 12 play drives consistently.
Matt, what do you think about Kurt's appraisal? Is that something that can plague a younger quarterback?
Well, it is because, again, for a young quarterback, in terms of getting into a rhythm and all that, you have a pre-snap read. And that's the one thing that we always gave a lot of credit to Mac Jones was for his processing ability, pre-snap understanding. But what happens is, you know, you get into this routine of taking the profit. And sometimes you get through that first part of your read, the down the field read, and get to that check down a little too quick and don't allow that play to develop. And we've all been victim of it at the quarterback position, right? You see this cover two shell, or you see something where you can get the ball to an outlet quickly and you try to get the ball in the running back's hands. But what happens is there's a bigger play to be had, right? And sometimes you bypass that because your mind's telling you, hey, this is what the coverage will absolutely give me. It's a safe throw. I can get the ball to my back in space and hopefully pick up some yardage. And so, you know, it takes time to continue to build that confidence that you're going to say, wait, I'm going to stick with this first process, the first read, and go through my progression before I get to the check down. If that makes sense.
Yeah, Phil,
definitely.
It does make sense. Do you think that is a symptom, Phil, of him maybe playing a little scared?
Well, and I think that's probably part of the way he's been coached too, right? Can't go broke making a profit, all that, like Matt said. I think that's part of it, is to play it safe, err on the side of playing it safe, because our team is built around a running game and a defense. And as long, Mac, as you can keep your hands on 10-2 and we don't lose the game, we're going to win a lot of games because of what we have around you. I did follow up with Mac Jones and asked him about this topic during his press availability. So let's hear what he had to say to my question to him about maybe going a little bit too quickly out there.
Naturally, I process pretty fast, and sometimes I do have to just slow down, but it depends. I mean, it changes every day. Even some days at practice, you kind of get into your flow and you just play how you know. And I think that's for anybody. They want to just get to where they feel comfortable, like they're playing fast and free, and not overthinking. So that's also important. So you can't really go back and forth too much.
All right. So he seems to confirm it there. He seems like there are times when he can play a little bit too quickly. And Matt, this brings me back to something that came out. This is over a month ago now, but when the Patriots were in Atlanta, allegedly he had a wristband with all little plays on it that was stolen, maybe put up for sale, maybe not, who knows, but the pictures sort of started circulating on the internet. And at the bottom of the wristband, you can't really see any of the plays or what they're called, but you can see little notes that it looks like maybe Mac Jones has written to himself. And two of them might be pertaining to the conversation we're having now. One of the notes was read and react. The other one was patience. So is this, you know, when you hear his answer there, what does that tell you?
You know, it's interesting because throughout the course of a week, throughout the course of a season, like Josh McDaniels will lay out certain things that we want to be better at, or we want to be good at. And sometimes it's just writing those things down, reaffirming it to yourself on a wristband, that when you open up that wristband, you're looking through those calls, you're like, read and react, be patient, and whatever else you put on there. And it's just something for him in his mind from a psychological standpoint. Hey, these are the two things that this is what we want to really hone in on this week, in which thinks that'll help us be the best version of ourselves. So, you know, everybody has these little things that they might write on, but that's interesting that came up. And this is the same conversation that we're having right now, right? Because it definitely pertains to the situation about being more patient in terms of letting the play develop downfield before you get to the check down. And then also, I think the other aspect of this is the read and react part is, a lot of times as a quarterback, you're sitting there and you're getting a pre-snap read and you're like, okay, I know what they're going to do. And you're saying, okay, I'm going to throw it here, or I'm going to move this guy in zone coverage. But then after post-snap, the big coaching point is always you have to reaffirm that's exactly what happened after post-snap, right? Did this guy move? Did Darius Leonard move out of that window and allow me to throw that ball to Hunter Henry? Or was he just sitting there and he didn't react and didn't move, and now I've thrown an interception? Does that make sense? So those all go hand in hand.
It makes a lot of sense. All of it does. And there's plays I think that we can all agree on that we've seen, maybe even the pick last week against the Dolphins. They think it's cover 2. He turns and goes, well, that's going to be a simple man throw, and it was zone, and he got stepped in front of. So as the Patriots enter the postseason and play the Buffalo Bills, are they at a point now where, let's call it for what it is, are they trying to survive the play of their quarterback?
It's one of those situations where he hasn't played well down the stretch. Let's be honest. I mean, what is it? 5 interceptions in the last 4 games?
Yeah, 3 bad games.
Yeah, 3 out of 4. So he's not playing his best football. He's probably not playing with the utmost of confidence. At the same time, he has the potential to always rebound. I think he's a confident player. I think he's a guy that goes out and works hard at it. And so this is a game that is different than all the rest. Every game is a game within itself. He's got to go out there and he's got to perform well. I don't believe they're going to try to hide Mac Jones. They're going to need Mac Jones in this game. Mm-hmm. They got to give him the confidence. He's got to go out and have a good week of practice, and that'll hopefully help put him in a good position to go out there when he's playing a good Buffalo Bills defense.
They're going to need him in high leverage plays too, Phil, right? I mean, if they're going to be run based, you might find yourself in 2nd and 8, 3rd and 5 frequently. That's the nature of this team. So while he might not be winging it all over the joint, he's going to have some plays where, look, it's either make this completion or we're off the field.
Well, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the play calling transpires over the course of the game, especially early for Josh McDaniels, because if you're going to go run, pass, that's not necessarily putting your quarterback in the best position to succeed. 100%. Because if one of those gets stuffed, now all of a sudden it's 3rd and long in your first drive of the game, and you've got to try to make a play against a really good defense. So early on, do they try to figure out a way to make it easier for him? Do they use play action on 1st down? Do they throw on 1st down a little bit? If you're throwing on running downs and able to run on 3rd down, then that can make a quarterback's life a little bit easier. Do they dip into some more creative things early on? Do they use some end arounds early on? Those have been some of their best plays all year, and pick up a nice chunk play early, get yourself into some 2nd and short, and allow him to kind of get into a rhythm of a game before you're really heaping this difficult 3rd and 5 situation on his shoulders when you're only 2 minutes into the first quarter. So that's something that I'll be looking for, is just trying to find ways to make him more comfortable, because you are going to need him. It's just a question of how do you manage him over the course of the game. I do think all year, Tom, they've been trying to manage him, right? The formula has been the same for them all year. Run game, defense. That's how they want to win.
All right, Matt, with all this conversation that we're having right now about Mac, and we'll get into the game plenty after the break, but Mac is a central figure here, obviously. But with the way he started so well and has kind of flatlined and maybe dipped a little here at the end of the season as the games have been more important, would you be wary at all going forward to see how he performs at the beginning of next year, and especially down the stretch next year? I mean, seems like they have the guy, but might they just have a guy?
You know what? It's one of those situations that when you look at his player and the play in his entirety of this season, I mean, we can all agree that he's had a phenomenal rookie year, and he set the bar very high, especially as he started out the season, the way he performed, not only in the first game against Miami, but against Tampa Bay, against Dallas. In those losses, he performed and put the team on his back. And when they asked him to go out there, get him back in the game, and he's done that throughout the course of the season. Now he's hit this kind of like wall at the end of the season where he hasn't performed as well as he's wanted to, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm worried about him. I think he'll continue to grow this offseason. He'll be able to step back after a long year, long preseason of going through all the combine, everything that he had to go through, and regroup and put himself in a better position of understanding this offense, know what he has to do against better opponents. That's the thing.
That's the whole thing. It's the better opponents.
It's when you go up against really good defenses, no matter if you're an explosive offense and you're really good, like, it's a grind throughout the course of that game. And to beat really good defenses, you have to be near perfect or be just really good that day. If you're off at all, they're going to make you look bad. And that's kind of what's happened over this last month, is he hasn't looked great or performed well against the better defenses in the NFL.
I don't think we have to make any proclamations about Mac Jones and determinations about his future right now. That's what's great about having a rookie quarterback, right? You've got this long runway.
It's a known quantity.
you've got this long runway to figure out what he is. So to me, what's within the realm of possibility, I honestly, if they can add some pieces around him, I wouldn't be shocked if he eventually, I don't know if it's year 2, year 3, year 4, turns into what we're seeing from Joe Burrow right now. I don't think physically those two are all that different. I really don't. But he's also at this level right now where he's sort of a middle tier quarterback, right? And again, that has huge value as a rookie. If you don't improve from there, you can still win games with him. But then it becomes a question of 3-4 years down the road. Okay, should we start looking elsewhere? But again, we're a long ways off from that. Matt Cassel and I batted that around very passionately before the first Buffalo game. I think that's where we are, is just we can't say for sure he's going to be the guy for the next 10 years, but we also shouldn't be looking at him next year and saying, oh, we might have to move on from this guy if it looks like the last month of the season, the first month of next season.
Yeah, they don't have Baker Mayfield, but they might have Derek Carr with a worse arm. All right, coming up after the break, we're going to go deep on this matchup. Get into an interesting spot that we haven't talked about much this week, and that's the left tackle spot, which could be critical. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, let's get into this matchup. Patriots at Bills. It's the third time around. I have a perception of this matchup that, look, the Patriots went to Buffalo. Everybody had their knives sharpened up there. This was going to be the big celebration on Monday Night Football, and the Patriots ruined that party. Bills never thought they'd get another chance to show their dominance, to show that they'd arrived. The usurpers from Western New York were deprived of their opportunity to dance on the Patriots' grave. Now that chance has come back, and they want to lop off the Patriots' head and put it on a stake outside that stadium. Ooh,
very barbaric.
And I think the Bills think that they're better than the Patriots. That's why I expect the Bills to play better than the Patriots. Fellas?
I mean, this is a really good Bills football team. Let's be honest. From an offensive standpoint, they've got outstanding weapons on the perimeter, Stephon Diggs. And then also in the second meeting when Josh Allen went off, look, they had Isaiah McKenzie was their leading receiver, and Cole Beasley was out. Gabriel was out as well. So they're going to have a full cast of characters this week. But again, weather conditions could kind of dictate whether or not they're going to be as explosive, because it should be sub-freezing temperatures. Defensively, they're good all around, right? They're great at the second level. Tremaine Edwards, AJ Klein, Matt Milano, all versatile, really good backers that can run sideline to sideline or physical. Their two safeties are two of the best in the league with Poyer and Hyde. I mean, so they're dynamic. They're a veteran group, and then their front four. I mean, every one of those guys are first round draft picks and can get after the quarterback. So they're just a good all around team.
And they must look at the Patriots and say, we're better than them, Phil.
They should feel that way, Tom. But the question is the weather the great equalizer here? Because the Bills are the number 2 team in DVOA this year. Overall, they're the number 1 defense in DVOA this year. I don't think their defense gets enough credit. We focus so much on Josh Allen, but they've got really good players at all levels of that defense. The Patriots, they've been great over the breadth of this season as well, but the way they're playing late in the year here, it's hard to have confidence in them unless the weather changes everything. And that's a possibility.
0 degrees is a pain in the ass. And I'm just talking about covering a game. Matt playing in 0 degrees, which it could be the case. Mac Jones has not played well in South Florida. He hasn't played well in a dome, and he hasn't played well at Gillette Stadium in 3 games of consequence down the stretch. What does 0 do to a quarterback?
I mean, it's more about your hands and also ball security. I mean, it's something as simplistic as we saw it last week in Miami, the quarterback center exchange. That ball gets slick, it gets hard, and you've got a secure snap, let alone when you're throwing the football. It's usually when you get warmed up and you've got enough layers and they've got all this different technology that you can wear underneath you. I mean, they've got wetsuits, all that stuff. So you'll be warm enough. But at the end of the day, you still feel it, right? And also those receivers feel it being on the outside, running in, and also ball security, again, as they come in securing the catch, those types of things that you can't take for granted in any cold weather game, particularly if there's a little bit of wind too, that adds a whole different element to it as well. But it's one of those, if you're standing there for long enough on that sideline, you better get by a heater and heat yourself up, because it's tough conditions to play in.
Is the huddle I think the huddle would be important in these games too, Phil. You want to huddle up, get close to your teammates. I would stay longer in the huddle.
Does the quarterback is the quarterback able to just load his little front pouch up with hand warmers there and then just pass them out to guys every time you guys huddle up? That would be really funny. That would be a nice thing for the quarterback to do. Just something to think about moving forward for all the quarterbacks listening to this. Tom, I think we actually downplay the way Josh Allen played in the Buffalo matchup, the first game between these two teams. Because if a couple of those passes that he makes in that game just get caught I mean, he put it on Stephon Diggs' hands in the end zone. There was another play late in the game where I thought he had a chance to hit Diggs and maybe the ball sails on him a little bit because of the wind, but Josh Allen was really not the problem for them in that game. I know his numbers in the cold aren't good, but he played pretty well that day. And if they get that kind of Josh Allen again on Saturday, I don't know if Patriots are going to be able to overcome that.
I say the one thing about Josh Allen is he played about as well as he has played all season in their second game that they played in Foxborough, right? Sure. Like to have that type of repeat performance, I would be hard pressed to bet. It would be a betting guy and bet the odds that he'd play that way, because he made plays inside the pocket, outside the pocket. And yes, he played well, but at the same time, he has these erratic games and he has these erratic plays. And you saw it even in the first game. Look, they're in the red zone. He panics, he runs around, he tries to make a play, but he gets sacked. It takes him out of field goal range. And then they miss the field goal, which was huge points for the team at that point. It was a momentum changer as well. So the big part about this whole deal is making him uncomfortable, but also not letting him make those big plays. And I don't think he can do that consistently, against the Patriots, even though he did in the second game that they played. I just don't think that it's going to go like that the same way this time around.
And he did that against Atlanta, Phil, right? I mean, right after the Patriots game, they played Atlanta in inclement conditions. After having beaten the Patriots, the next week he played like ass. All right. Here's the thing, though. I have concerns about the Patriots offense. If we look at the Patriots scoring offense over the course of the year, they've been 1 or 2 most of the way. It's also with a 54-point game against the Jets, a 45-point game against Cleveland, 36 against Tennessee, 50 against Jacksonville. But when they've gotten in against some of the better defenses, and they've needed points, 17 against Indy, 21 against Buffalo in the loss, 24 against Miami, 29 against Dallas, good, 27 against the Chargers, and that had a pick 6 in it. I just don't know if this offense is yet to a maturity point and a development point where they can go out and you say they're going to put up 24 points today.
In the cold against a really good defense, I don't think from an offensive standpoint, now who knows, do they get a defensive score? Do they get a special team score? I don't think you can depend on much more than 20 points. And that puts so much pressure on the Patriots defense. And it gets back to this conversation that we've had really all year, which is their margin for error against good teams is incredibly slim just because of where they're at offensively right now. We could talk about Mac Jones's struggles. We could talk about the weapons and where they would rank. If you were to line up all of the playoff competitors, they'd probably be near the bottom. So they just are what they are offensively. And so you can't expect them to go in and put up 30 in 0 degrees, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, for any team, it's tough to put up 30 in 0 degrees. But in this particular offense and how they're formulated and they're predicated on the run game, right? They run first, they set up play action pass. But when you look at their passing attack, it's not a vertical passing attack. It's a possession game, right? They're going to try to beat you with quick passes, get you in rhythm. And so the explosive plays have come a little bit throughout the course of the year, but they're few and far between. And it's hard for any offensive unit to go and have to go first down, second down, convert on third down, first down, second down, convert on third down. It's a grind throughout because those conversions are tough because that's when you get all the different looks from the defense, the disguises, the blitzes. And so they overwhelm you with that. And you've got to be on your P's and Q's. Now, do they have the ability to go out and put up 24 points, 27 points? Of course they do. But that's going to take everybody on board and some big plays, and it might just be some gimmicks as well, which I don't doubt that they'll probably throw in this game as well.
Yeah, second time around, their best drive was college option, triple option. Mm-hmm. They really got nuanced in the running game, and that made a huge difference. And I imagine that'll be the way they sex it up a little bit too. Phil, matchup-wise, Isaiah Wynn has been out of practice through Wednesday. He's probably going to be limited a little bit. How big an impact will that be?
I think it's huge just because I'm not sure what comes after Isaiah Wynn. In theory, it would be Trent Brown, right? Because he was your starting left tackle for a Super Bowl run just a few years ago. But I asked him about it earlier this week. He hasn't practiced at left tackle all year. Not since OTAs, he said, has he been on the left side. And going into Wednesday's practice, now who knows, maybe on Wednesday he did end up on the left side there, but going into Wednesday, he said he hadn't heard from any of the coaches that he was going to be on the left side, and Isaiah Wynn did not practice in that first.
So then who?
Of the week. Well, it was Justin Curran who came in during Miami. And if that's the case, now you're almost back to what you were dealing with through the first month of the season when Mac Jones was on a record-setting pace in terms of absorbing quarterback hits.
What about Onwenu?
Right.
Onwenu hasn't played the left side either. Surprisingly, he hasn't played left tackle at all. He's played almost every other spot outside of center, but he hasn't played left tackle. He's played left guard and he's played right tackle, but they haven't had him on the left side. Now, would they try it? Sure. I mean, we've seen this team put Brian Stork at tackle at one point when injury demanded it, but I just don't know which way they would go there. Maybe they feel good enough about Curran there, but to me, you put Brown on the left side, hope it works, and then stick Onwenu at right tackle. I think that's your best five. There's really no question in my mind about that.
I agree with Phil right there. I mean, Onwenu is a proven entity. We saw it last year. He's capable of holding down that right tackle spot. But what I will say is that's a difficult transition for Trent Brown to go from playing right tackle where your footwork, your stance, everything from your punch back, and especially in pass protection is so different from the left tackle. Now, I know he's well-versed and he's done it in the past, but on a short week and you're turning around and all of a sudden asked to play left tackle and you have to reformulate your thoughts and how you go about your approach is a challenge. But I'm not saying it can't be done, but that is the best lineup. If they can achieve that and get Trent Brown comfortable enough before the game to go out and play with those guys, I'd say that's your best lineup there in terms of an offensive line unit.
Either way, not really where you want to be in your playoff game when you haven't been playing that well. And you're on a quick turnaround. Patriots schedule-wise cannot be psyched about how things have gone in 2021. Late bye, shortened bye week because they had a Monday night game and a Saturday night game. Now they're playing on Saturday night, so they're losing time there as well after coming back from Miami, which is always an underrated long flight. So all that considered and all the other things we talked about in the first 21 minutes of this podcast, I do not like the Patriots' chances in this one. They're just not where you want to be yet. Buffalo Bills win 27-17. Who's ready to step to the mic with a prediction like Tom?
I've got one. I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring. I've got it 20-17 also with the Bills coming away and winning this thing. And to me, it gets back to defensively, what do the Patriots have at this point in time? We know offensively, they're not going to light up the scoreboard. At least I feel like I know that. Defensively, that's what could give them a chance to move on against good teams, but they're just not there right now. Matt Judon has not been the same. Christian Barmore gets injured in that Miami game. I mean, we've talked about it all year, guys. Those guys have made this defense go to a large extent over the course of this year. For them not to be at full strength or at least look that way right now, that to me means they just don't have a great shot against a really, really good offense on the road.
Yeah, and that's the part about it is it's hard pressed to sit here and say the Patriots are going to pull this one out just based on all the factors, the way that they played down the stretch, the way that they've played against really good teams. And now you're going on the road to the Bills, another hostile environment in which we didn't even talk about. The noise in the environment itself is going to be electrifying in that game. And so that puts even more emphasis on the offensive unit to communicate and all those different factors. So because of that, I am going with the Bills 21-20.
Okay, that's a close one, Matt. So
you.
people will be in front of their TVs all night Saturday night, which means they can join us for post-game live right after the game and pre-game live right before the game. Phil will be freezing his tuchus off in Western New York, and we will be in the warmth of our studio. Thanks, everyone, for being with us. We love you very much, and we will either be previewing another playoff game because we got our faces stuffed with a whole bunch of shut up next week, or we'll be putting a postscript on the season. See you then. Either way.